The court camera caught Mr. Henderson's face, a quick, arrogant smirk flashing across it. The prosecutor had just asked for community service for his financial fraud. It was a bizarre moment, almost dreamlike, seeing that expression in a place so serious. Henderson's lawyer, a man who looked too comfortable in his expensive suit, leaned in and whispered something. Henderson's smirk didn't just stay, it grew, turning into a full-blown grin. It was a quiet, knowing gesture, a silent nod to himself, like he'd already won, like he knew he'd somehow gotten away with it. I was sitting in the gallery, watching all of this unfold. I expected to feel a burning anger, a rage that would cloud everything. Instead, a cold calm settled over me. It was unnerving, even to myself. This wasn't the fury I had practiced in my head, the sharp words I'd rehearsed. This was something different, a quiet certainty that felt heavier than any anger could. Judge Caprio, a man known for his sharp mind and even sharper tongue, watched Henderson. His eyes narrowed just a fraction, a subtle change that most wouldn't notice. But I did. It was a tiny shift, a tightening around his gaze, but the full weight of what he was about to do, his impending decision, remained a complete mystery. The air in the courtroom felt thick, heavy with unspoken anticipation. Some smiles are just a prelude to a fall. The courtroom held its breath, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break, the truth that was about to hit. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Growing up, our town was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. It was a small, working-class community in the heart of the United States. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Values like honesty and trust weren't just words. They were the foundation of everything. Sunday gatherings after church were a staple. Potlucks where everyone brought their best dish. Life revolved around the local businesses. The hardware store run by old Mr. Peterson, the diner where Mrs. Rodriguez knew everyone's order by heart, and my own small shop. We shared our struggles, celebrated our successes, and always looked out for one another. It was a collective responsibility, a quiet understanding that we were all in this together. I built my livelihood on that very principle. My small business wasn't just about making money. It was about serving my neighbors. I often extended credit to families who were a little short or helped out with repairs when someone couldn't afford it right away. It was just how things were done. Then Henderson arrived. He was charismatic, smooth-talking, and presented himself as an ambitious entrepreneur. He quickly integrated into our community, joining local committees, sponsoring little league teams, and always had a smile and a handshake ready. He seemed to embrace our values, or at least, he was very good at making it look like he did. But even then, subtle signs started to pop up. Small inconsistencies in his stories, little things that didn't quite add up. His charm, while effective, felt overly polished, almost too perfect. He also showed a keen interest in the community's financial vulnerabilities, always asking about people's savings, their investments, or any financial struggles. While I trusted him, like most others did, a faint unease began to stir inside me. It was just a feeling, nothing I could put my finger on, but it was there. Growing up, our town was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. It was a small, working-class community in the heart of the United States. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Values like honesty and trust weren't just words. They were the foundation of everything. Sunday gatherings after church were a staple. Potlucks where everyone brought their best dish. Life revolved around the local businesses. the hardware store run by old Mr. Peterson, the diner where Mrs. Rodriguez knew everyone's order by heart, and my own small shop. We shared our struggles, celebrated our successes, and always looked out for one another. It was a collective responsibility, a quiet understanding that we were all in this together. I built my livelihood on that very principle. My small business wasn't just about making money. It was about serving my neighbors. I often extended credit to families who were a little short or helped out with repairs when someone couldn't afford it right away. It was just how things were done. Then Henderson arrived. He was charismatic, smooth-talking, and presented himself as an ambitious entrepreneur. He quickly integrated into our community, joining local committees, sponsoring Little League teams, and always had a smile and a handshake ready. He seemed to embrace our values, or at least he was very good at making it look like he did. But even then, subtle signs started to pop up, small inconsistencies in his stories, little things that didn't quite add up. His charm, while effective, felt overly polished, almost too perfect. He also showed a keen interest in the community's financial vulnerabilities, always asking about people's savings, their investments, or any financial struggles. While I trusted him, like most others did, a faint unease began to stir inside me. It was just a feeling, nothing I could put my finger on, but it was there. He would often talk about big city opportunities, about ways to make our small-town money work harder. He'd sit in the diner, buying coffee for the regulars, listening intently as they talked about their hopes for their kids, their retirement dreams, or the medical bills piling up. He had a way of making people feel seen, heard, and understood. He'd nod, offering what seemed like genuine sympathy, and then casually drop a suggestion about a new investment he was involved in, something that promised huge returns with little risk. At first, these were just conversations, seeds planted in fertile ground. People in our town were naturally cautious, but Henderson was patient. He started with small gestures, helping Mrs. Rodriguez get a better deal on new kitchen equipment for her diner, or advising Mr. Peterson on upgrading his inventory system. These small wins built a foundation of trust. He was seen as a benefactor, a smart guy from outside who understood how to navigate the complex world beyond our town limits. My own interactions with him were always pleasant, if a bit shallow. He'd stop by my shop, admire my work, and ask about my family. He'd make a point of saying how much he respected local businesses and the hard work that went into them. I appreciated the sentiment, even if it felt a little rehearsed sometimes. My unease never fully went away, but it was easy to push it aside. After all, he was doing good things for the community, or so it seemed. He was bringing a new energy, a promise of prosperity that many of us, after years of economic struggle, desperately wanted to believe in. He became a fixture at town hall meetings, always speaking eloquently about growth and progress. He was the kind of person who could sell ice to an Eskimo, and our town, with its deep-seated trust and open hearts, was an easy mark. He knew how to play on people's hopes and fears, how to make them feel like he was on their side, fighting for their future. It was a masterclass in manipulation, unfolding right before our eyes. But we were too close, too invested in the dream he was selling to see it clearly. That initial unease I felt about Henderson soon turned into something more concrete, something that chipped away at the community's trust, piece by piece. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a slow erosion, like water wearing down stone. He was very good at being subtle, almost invisible in his damage. He'd come into my shop, for instance, and while I was serving a customer, he'd make a casual comment, loud enough to be heard, like, Oh, still waiting on that big payment from the city, huh? Hope it comes through soon. Wouldn't want you to be in a bind. It sounded like concern, but it was a veiled jab, suggesting my business was struggling. He did this with others too, always planting little seeds of doubt about someone's financial stability, especially when there were potential clients around. It wasn't direct slander, but it was effective, making people question if they should really trust their money or business with me, or with others he targeted. He also had a knack for grand promises that never quite materialized. He'd talk about bringing a big new factory to town, or securing a grant for the community center, or even partnering with me on a larger project. He'd lay out these elaborate plans full of numbers and future projections, making everyone excited. People would invest their time, sometimes even their own small savings, based on these promises. But then, things would fall apart. The factory deal would mysteriously stall. The grant application would get lost, or the partnership would somehow never move past the initial handshake. He always had a smooth excuse, blaming bureaucracy or unexpected market shifts. No one could ever pin him down, and people were left with empty hopes and sometimes empty pockets. One of the most frustrating patterns was his habit of borrowing money. He'd always frame it as a short-term loan, an investment into one of his opportunities that would pay off handsomely for both of us. He'd come to people, including me, with a story about a temporary cash flow issue, or a chance to get in on the ground floor of something huge if he just had a little capital to bridge the gap. Our community was generous, and many of us, myself included, were willing to help a neighbor. He played on that. He'd promised to pay back with interest, sometimes even offering a share of future profits. But the repayment plans were always vague, the dates always shifting. He exploited that generosity, taking advantage of people's good nature and their desire for a better future. I remember when he convinced old Mr. Miller, who had a small retirement fund, to invest in a new tech startup Henderson claimed to be part of. Mr. Miller was excited, thinking he was securing his grandchildren's future. Henderson gave him fancy paperwork, made it all sound very official. Weeks later, the startup vanished, and so did Mr. Miller's money. Henderson just shrugged, saying, "Investments are risky," and offered a vague apology. He never took responsibility. My own experience was less dramatic, but just as infuriating. He borrowed a significant sum from my business for what he called a surefire real estate deal. I saw it as helping a friend, a community member. The deal, of course, went nowhere, and my money was gone. He always had a reason why he couldn't pay back, why he was the victim of circumstances. These weren't isolated incidents. They were a consistent, calculated pattern of microaggressions and deceptions. Each broken promise, each subtly spread rumor, each unpaid loan slowly chipped away at my sense of security, at my trust in people, and especially at my trust in Henderson. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the betrayal. It was about seeing someone you thought was a friend, someone who claimed to be part of your community, systematically taking advantage of everyone around him. The emotional toll was immense. It was a slow, painful realization that the man who had walked into our lives with such charm was actually a predator, carefully dismantling the very fabric of our close-knit town for his own gain. The betrayal felt deep, personal, and it left a bitter taste in my mouth, a heavy weight in my chest that would only grow heavier. The financial pressures on me and the rest of the community got worse. Henderson's schemes, which used to be subtle, became more obvious. He was bolder, less careful, probably because he thought he could get away with anything. People started to talk, not just whispers, but actual arguments breaking out in the public places. You'd hear loud voices in the diner or outside the post office as people realized they had been completely swindled. It was like a slow, painful awakening. I was in a tough spot. For a long time, I had defended Henderson, trying to see the best in him, making excuses for his failures. I told myself he was just unlucky, that his intentions were good. Now, I had to face the difficult truth. I had to confront him, but also somehow protect my own business and my reputation. It wasn't easy. I felt like I was walking on eggshells everywhere I went. Every conversation felt loaded. My own family was not spared. My cousin, Mark, had invested a chunk of his savings into one of Henderson's guaranteed ventures, mostly because I had vouched for him indirectly. Mark's anger and disappointment were clear. He didn't yell, but the way he looked at me, the way he hesitated before answering my calls, spoke volumes. It was a silent accusation that cut deeper than any shouted word. My wife, usually so steady, started looking at our finances with a worried frown, constantly asking if I was sure we hadn't put too much trust in him. The stress at home was palpable, a constant low hum of anxiety. Neighbors, who once shared coffee and stories, now eyed me with suspicion. I could feel their judgment, even when nothing was said. The small-town atmosphere, which used to be warm and inviting, turned cold and heavy. The coffee shop, once a hub of friendly chatter, became a place where conversations stopped abruptly when I walked in. I'd catch snippets of hushed tones, glances quickly averted. It was like living under a microscope, every move analyzed, every interaction scrutinized. The weight of those unspoken accusations, those silent judgments, was crushing. It felt like the entire community was waiting for me to admit my mistake, to somehow fix the mess that Henderson had made and that I, in my misguided trust, had helped facilitate. I reached a breaking point. There were nights I couldn't sleep, just staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, wondering where I went wrong. The guilt was immense, a heavy blanket that smothered me. Financially, my business was strained. The money I'd loaned Henderson was gone, and the ripple effect of his other failures meant fewer customers for everyone. The erosion of my community standing hurt the most. I had built my life on honesty and hard work, on being a good neighbor. Now, that foundation felt cracked, crumbling. The once familiar streets and sounds of the town, the gentle hum of daily life, now felt oppressive. The chirping crickets at night sounded like accusations. The distant laughter from a neighbor's yard felt like a reminder of what we had lost. I walked through town, feeling like a ghost, disconnected from the very place I had always called home. My internal turmoil was a raging storm, a constant battle between anger, regret, and a desperate need for things to be set right. I knew something had to change, that I couldn't keep living under this cloud of suspicion and despair. The quiet, trusting town had been shattered, and I felt responsible for helping to pick up the pieces, even if it meant confronting the hard truths about myself and about Henderson. Then a turning point arrived, a moment that cut through all the doubt and pain like a sharp knife. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic event, but a quiet, almost anonymous act that changed everything. One evening, an old associate of Henderson's reached out. He didn't want his name known, said he was racked with guilt, couldn't live with it anymore. He slipped a plain brown envelope under my door. Inside were not just papers, but a clear, undeniable picture of the truth. The envelope held detailed financial records, bank statements, and even email exchanges. They laid out Henderson's large-scale fraud, showing how he had systematically siphoned funds, created fake investment opportunities, and moved money around to cover his tracks. It wasn't just a few bad deals. It was an elaborate, calculated scheme to defraud multiple individuals and small businesses right here in our community. The documents named names, listed amounts, and showed a level of deceit that made my stomach churn. It wasn't just about my money or Mark's or the community's. It was about a deliberate plan to exploit trust, to take advantage of people who genuinely believed in him. This revelation was more than just proof of Henderson's guilt. It was a wake-up call for me. For so long, I had tried to find excuses, to believe in the good in people, even when the signs were screaming otherwise. I had rationalized his behavior, hoped for his redemption, but looking at those papers, seeing the cold, hard numbers and the cynical planning, I understood that my loyalty, my desire to see the best in others, had been used against me. It had been twisted and exploited. Continuing to tolerate or rationalize Henderson's actions would no longer be an act of kindness or understanding. It would be a betrayal of myself, of my family, and of the very community I had worked so hard to uphold. I realized I had been enabling him, indirectly, by not taking a stand sooner. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, I made a decision that was both terrifying and liberating. I decided to take legal action. I knew it wouldn't be easy. It would be a long, drawn-out battle, messy and public. It would mean more stress, more scrutiny, and probably more financial strain. But it was necessary. It was the only way to stop the cycle of suffering, to bring some semblance of justice, and to begin the healing process for our shattered community. This wasn't just about getting our money back. It was about sending a clear message that such deceit would not be tolerated, that trust, once broken, had consequences. The truth, now undeniable and glaring, had a powerful effect. When I shared the evidence with a few key community members, the initial shock quickly turned into anger, and then into a unified resolve. The passive suffering, the whispered suspicions, the individual pains, all of it transformed into a collective outrage. People who had been hesitant to speak out before, fearing repercussions or simply not having enough concrete proof, now had something solid to stand on. The documents were a rallying cry, turning a scattered group of victims into a unified front against Henderson. The quiet town, once a victim of subtle manipulation, was now ready to fight back, together. It felt like a heavy weight had been lifted, replaced by a fierce determination. The trial began, a grim spectacle that brought the full weight of Henderson's actions into the harsh light of day. Some community members, who had initially been hesitant to openly accuse Henderson, now rallied around me. They offered support, shared their own stories of being defrauded, and provided further evidence that strengthened our case. Their courage was inspiring, showing that even after a deep betrayal, unity could still emerge. But not everyone joined in. Others, still wary and deeply scarred by the betrayal, chose to distance themselves. They couldn't bear to relive the pain, and their absence in the courtroom was a stark reminder of how deeply Henderson had fractured our close-knit town. The lingering scars of his deceit were visible in their cautious eyes and quiet withdrawal. The court proceedings publicly exposed the full extent of Henderson's sophisticated fraud. It wasn't just about the financial losses, which were significant, but also the emotional devastation he had caused. Witness after witness took the stand, their voices trembling as they recounted how Henderson had preyed on their trust, their hopes, and their hard-earned savings. Small business owners described losing their life's work, Families spoke of shattered dreams and mounting debts, and elderly residents tearfully explained how their retirement funds had vanished. The sheer scale of his deception, the intricate web of lies he had spun, shocked even the most seasoned legal professionals. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Henderson, who had walked into the courtroom with that same smug smirk, confident that he would receive a slap on the wrist, saw his world crumble. Judge Caprio, his face stern and unyielding, delivered a sentence far harsher than anyone, especially Henderson, had anticipated. The judge didn't just focus on the financial crimes. He spoke eloquently and powerfully about the systemic destruction of trust within a community, about the ripple effect of such a betrayal on people's lives and their faith in their neighbors. He highlighted how Henderson had not just stolen money, but had stolen peace of mind, security, and the very fabric of our town's communal spirit. Henderson's moral and social fall was complete. His carefully constructed facade, the charming businessman persona, shattered into a million pieces. The smirk vanished, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief, then a growing realization of the severity of his fate. He was no longer the charismatic figure who had woven himself into our lives. He was a convicted fraudster, isolated, and facing significant prison time. The justice system, slowly but surely, had caught up to him. For me, though the scars remained, there was a profound sense of emotional victory. It wasn't just about Henderson's punishment, or the restitution that might eventually come. It was about reclaiming my integrity, about standing up for what was right, and about helping to rebuild the trust that had been so cruelly broken. The journey from naive trust to painful betrayal, and finally, to resilient recovery, had been arduous. But through it all, I found strength in adversity, in the unexpected unity of those who chose to fight alongside me. I often reflect on that period, on the lessons learned. The experience taught me the enduring importance of vigilance, even when you want to believe the best in people. It also showed me the incredible resilience of the human spirit and the power of a community to heal, even after being deeply wounded. Our town changed, yes. We became a little more cautious, a little less quick to trust. But we also became stronger, more unified in our shared understanding of right and wrong. The final thought I carry is a testament to the human spirit's capacity for healing and justice. It's a quiet contemplation about trust, betrayal, and the long, often difficult, path to redemption. Not just for Henderson, but for all of us who were touched by his deceit.